Hello, everyone. I think we're coming in a little late, but we're getting it through. Oops. Reading from Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harry Beecher Stowe. And, I used to use the word Uncle Tom all the time. And silly me, I had not read the book. And I'm ashamed. I was doing this deep into my adulthood. And when I read the book, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Uncle Tom doesn't want to stay a slave. He wants to be free. Okay, he's overly Christian, overly religious. Okay, all right. Then I got to the end and was like, why is Uncle Tom a bad character? So I'm gonna read the end of Uncle Tom because I'm guessing that a lot of people who are using this Uncle Tom phrase has not read the book. Okay. The morning star now stands over the tops of the mountains, and gales and breezes not of earth show that the gates of day are unclosing. The escape of Cassia and Emmeline irritated the before surly temper of Legree to the last degree, and his fury, as was to be expected, fell upon the defenseless head of Tom. When he hurriedly announced the tidings among his hands, there was a sudden light in Tom's eye, a sudden upraising of his hands that did not escape him. He saw that he did not join the muster of the pursuers. He thought of forcing him to do it, but having had of old experience of his inflexibility when commanded to take part in any deed of inhumanity, he would not. In his fury, stopped to enter into any conflict with him. Tom therefore remained behind, with a few who had learned of him to pray, and offered up prayers for the escape of the fugitives. So right there, Tom says, look, I'm not going to help you go find these slaves. I'm not going to help you. I'm a slave. I'm not going to help you go find other slaves. Most black people I know have jobs destroying other black people, and they take those paychecks and go home and sleep just fine. When Legree returned, baffled and disappointed, all the long working hatred of his soul towards his slave began to gather in a deadly and desperate form. Had not this man braved him steadily, powerfully, resistlessly, ever since he bought him? Was there not a spirit in him which, silent as it was, burned on him like the fires of perdition? I hate him, said Legree, that night as he sat up in his bed. I hate him, and isn't he mine? Can't I do what I like with him? Who's to hinder, I wonder? And Legree clenched his fist and shook it, as if he had something in his hands that he could not rend to pieces. But then, Tom was a faithful, valuable servant, and although Legree hated him the more for that, yet the consideration was still somewhat of a restraint to him. The next morning he determined to say nothing as yet, to assemble a party for some neighboring plantations with dogs and guns to surround the swamp and go about the hunt systematically. If it succeeded, well and good. If not, he would summon Tom before him, and his teeth clenched and his blood boiled. Then he would break the fellow down, or there was a dire inward whisper to which his soul assented. This is the problem. When you are in the group that's oppressed, other people are always thinking about you, how to manage you, how to harm you, how to manipulate you. So even when you're doing your thing and you're like, that's on them, you have to be careful with that mindset, because you have to be preparing for what's going to happen. And we should be fighting situations where we are vulnerable to other people, where they have power over everything we do. It's not a good. It's not a good place. I don't care how much money you have, and how comfortable you are, how many cars you have, how many houses you have. If someone has power over you, that's not a good position. That's why a lot of black billionaires, well, a lot of black billionaires, there's not many, but a lot of black people who have wealth, most of them, first of all, most of them are entertainers or athletes, and they're scared to death. They can't speak their mind. They can't say what they want. So, again, fight for freedom. Because if you have freedom, you'll always be able to feed, clothe, and house yourself. But when you don't have it, you'll always be worried that you can't. Ye say that the interest of the master is a sufficient safeguard for the slave. In the fury of man's mad will, he will wittingly and with open eyes sell his own soul to the devil to gain his ends. And will he be more careful of his neighbor's body? Well, said Cassie the next day from the garret as she reconnoitered through the knothole. The hunt's going to begin again today. 3 or 4 mounted horsemen were curveted about and on the space front of the house, and 1 or 2 leashes of strange dogs were struggling with the Negroes who held them, baying and barking at each other. The men are, 2 of them, overseers of plantations in the vicinity, and others were some of Legree's associates at the tavern bar of a neighboring city, who had come for the interest of the sport. That's police officers. A more hard-favored set perhaps could not be imagined. Legree was serving brandy profusely round among them, as also among the Negroes, who had been detailed from the various plantations for this service, for it was an object to make every service of this kind among the Negroes as much of a holiday as possible. Cassie placed her ear at the knothole, and as the morning's air blew directly toward the house, she could overhear a good deal of conversation, a grave sneer overcast the dark. Severe gravity of her face, and she listened, and heard them divide out the ground, discuss the rival merits of the dogs, give orders about firing, and the treatment of each in case of capture. Cassie drew back and, clasping her hands, looked upward and said, O great Almighty God, we are all sinners, but what have we done more than all the rest of the world that we should be treated so? Yeah, I wonder that too. But then again, black people just have gotten we've gotten so comfortable with being less, with not having a seat at the table of humanity, that it's really bad. There was a terrible earnestness in her face and voice as she spoke. If it wasn't for you, child, she said, looking at Emmeline, I'd go out to them, and I'd thank any one of them that would shoot me down. For what use will freedom be to me? Can it give me back my children, or make me what I used to be? Emmeline, in her childlike simplicity, was half afraid of the dark moods of Cassie. She looked perplexed, but made no answer. She only took her hand with a gentle, caressing movement. Don't, said Cassie, trying to draw it away. You'll get me to loving you, and I never mean to love anything again. Poor Cassie, said Emmeline, don't feel so. If the Lord gives us liberty, perhaps he'll give you back your daughter. At any rate, I'll be like a daughter to you. I know I'll never see my poor old mother again. I shall love you, Cassie, whether you love me or not. The gentle childlike spirit conquered. Cassie sat down by her, put her arms around her neck, stroked her soft brown hair, and Emmeline then wondered at the beauty of her magnificent eyes, now soft with tears. "O M," said Cassie, "I've hungered for my children and thirsted for them, and my eyes fell with longing for them. Here, here," she said, striking at her breast. "It's all desolate, all empty. If God would give me back my children, then I could pray." "You must pray to him, Cassie," said Emmeline. "He is our Father." "His wrath is upon us," said Cassie. "He has turned away in anger." "No, Cassie, he will be good to us. Let us hope in him," said Emmeline. "I always have had hope." The hunt was long, animated, and thorough, but unsuccessful, and with the grave, ironic exultation, Cassie looked down on Legree as, weary and dispirited, he alighted from his horse. So basically, the two women are hiding up in the attic of the big house, and he thinks that they're gone. And if I remember right in the rest of the book, they haunt him. They make noises up there, and he starts to believe that they're ghosts and loses his mind. This is why slavery, I don't know why people in this country want it so bad. It was horrible for the slave, no doubt. Even if you had a master that treated you like 3/5. But it was horrible for the master. It's just a horrible situation. Now Quimbo, said Legree, as he stretched himself down in the sitting room, "you just go and walk that Tom up here, right away. That old cuss is at the bottom of this year whole matter. At the bottom of this year whole matter. And I'll have it out of his old black hide. And I'll know the reason why. Sambo and Quimbo, both Sambo and Quimbo, I guess this is where Sambo comes from, both hating each other, were joined in one mind by a no less cordial hatred of Tom. Legree had told them at first that he had brought him for a general overseer in his absence, and this had begun an ill will on their part, which had increased in their debased and servile natures, as they saw him becoming obnoxious to their master's displeasure. Quimbo therefore departed with a will to execute his orders. You see that? Black people love to hate on each other. Here you are under a master, and the master told you, I'm going to get somebody to put over you, and you hate the person. The person don't have no free will. Talk about slaves. Sad. And then angry with the slave, because angry with the black man because he won't go along. Yeah, he does his job, but he won't go along with all of the politics of the plantation. Right. With all of the horror and the injustice of it. I know what that's like. Just work. Oh man, and other slaves will tell you, man, other black folks, just work, man, just work. But I am working, yeah, but that ain't making no money. Stop making them videos and all that stuff. Make some real money. But if I work on that, I'm gonna be miseducating other blacks, or I'm gonna be working in the hospital giving bad medicine, or I'm gonna be just do what you gotta do for you. It's weird. It's always been. Tom heard the message with a forewarning heart, for he knew all the plan of the fugitives' escape and the place of their present concealment. He knew the deadly character of the man he had to deal with and his despotic power, but he felt strong in God to meet death rather than betray the helpless. Listen, most black people will not even put up with a 10% of discomfort to help us, to help their brothers and sisters. Most. Maybe family members might, but you're not going to have, on principle, black people doing this for each other. Tom did it. So you calling people Uncle Toms, you need to get a new phrase. Because if 10% of our population was like Uncle Tom, just the part where I'm not going to harm other black people and I'd rather die than do it, we could get out of this rut. If 10% of us was doing it. But 95 to 99% of us are just going to run over each other and not even look back. So I'm going to continue to read from this week. I think my next video is going to be behind the paywall, but the one after that won't be. So Uncle Tom's Cabin. And if you want to support the podcast, you know what to do. Give directly, hit the links, or become a sponsor. Until next time, please be safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, more importantly.